of course, like this can become like the project of Venezuela can become a problem for as a reference, and they have a lot of problems in house, so they also want to displace the focus to elsewhere, and that's when they begin to cook up the whole thing about narco-terrorism. So this is all around a war against the people of Venezuela, against the sovereign project, and it shouldn't surprise us that it comes with prices, and that it comes with discourse, that it comes with lies, but that it also comes with death and destruction.
Thinking about the Nobel Peace Prize, everybody's saying this for trying to spread democracy in Venezuela, which is weird, because that you would be thinking that there is no democracy in Venezuela. But as we've had guests on, like Fiorella Isabel and Craig Jardula, they've actually went to Venezuela to observe the elections that were happening in Venezuela. And they have actually spoken about how clear and how thorough their democratic process in Venezuela is. So much so that as far as Venezuela is concerned, it is considered to have one of the most thorough election processes in the world, better than the United States. So if that is the case, then her getting a prize for a Nobel Peace Prize for, spreading democracy in Venezuela is like somebody, it's like somebody taking a bucket of water and pouring it into the ocean and going, hey, I filled up the ocean. It's like, what? You already have democracy there. Why are you getting an award for something that you haven't even done, that's already existing there? So you're not adding anything. So therefore, really, the Nobel Prize is really a farce now. It's a joke. And they have created it to be a joke. And then so much, now you have people like Barack Obama that's literally congratulating her.
Yeah, we're going to get to him soon.
There's literally drone strike his own American citizens in order to bring peace to West Asia. And so for somebody like him to get praises from really just rings hollow about what, getting this prize that really doesn't mean anything at all anymore. It's really just for people to use an appeal to authority to say, well, this person got a Nobel Peace Prize. And it's like, I got presents from Santa. Who cares? Like, it doesn't mean.
That's why I'm actually glad. I said this on Twitter. I'm glad they did this, because this Nobel Peace Prize doesn't mean anything. It's essentially the CIA Rookie of the Year award. It's who they acknowledge as the new up-and-coming puppet of the empire. So it's go ahead, sir. Feel free if you want.
Actually, just very quickly, because I know that we are cutting here, but we are continuing, but elsewhere. So actually, the people who called for this, amongst other, were no other than Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz. So they are about a year ago, they called for this on a letter to the commission. So imagine that. It's just like, it's all cooked up in house, and there's really no question about what this show is about.
So if we know that it doesn't mean anything, doesn't that mean this is a good thing? Because I think this is a blunder by the ruling class. To me, I think it's better for them to keep criminals like Maria Machado away from the spotlight, because you want to know the consequence of this. Now everyone and their mother is looking into this person now. I'm seeing people who are lib-minded who never cover Venezuela like, hey, do you know this person is a Zionist puppet who called for Israel to invade our country? Like, you guys know, I've been covering Venezuela for years. We had Venezuela analysis on. I've been tightly covering the Maduro story for years. But now the global consensus, everyone's eyes is on the story. Now, everyone who's part of the global majority, who's a victim of this fraudulent international order, they're using this as another example of why the international order is fraudulent. So to me, I think they messed up by putting the spotlight on this criminal. You even have Putin that came out like, bro, this is a joke. Like, the point I'm making is, this is not good. This shows that they're desperate. And look at the headline here in Syria. You can help me dismantle this talking point, because CNN, every single quote unquote liberal media outlet, every single Western outlet saying that she's getting this Nobel Peace Prize because she's fighting for democracy. She's promoting democracy, fighting dictatorship. You guys realize what she has done is the exact opposite. So sanctions, especially economic sanctions, is a way for you to meddle into an election. It's a way for you to, it's inherently election meddling, because the whole idea is that you want to change the consensus of the public against the ruling class. The whole point is sanctions to tank the economy so the Venezuelan people will blame Nicolas Maduro. So if you rob a country of their economic sovereignty, you're inherently meddling in the election. Hopefully I explained that well. Hopefully that makes sense. But if you have a figure like her who's calling for that, not only is she not a champion of democracy, she's a champion of fascism. But Sarah, do you want to take on this headline? This is what they're all saying.
Well, basically, it's just absurd. I mean, you were mentioning also that she is a Zionist and she has once and again supported the genocide, but also in 2018 she sent a letter to none other than Netanyahu asking for an intervention in Venezuela. So this is the kind of person she is, and I think that this explains it all. I mean, like, if you want to know who she is, she supports the genocide and she calls on Netanyahu and on the Zionist entity to support a regime change, bloodshed in Venezuela. So I think that it's important to put this in context, because of course it is true that, you know, since since there's been so many people who we don't trust very much, like Kissinger, who got Nobel Peace Prizes, and we know who he is, so we know that he was a person who generated bloodshed all around the world. People who maybe remember that will know, even if they don't know the particularities of Maria Corina Machado, that she must be a really bad person. The same with Obama, right? Like, anybody who knows who Obama was, in your very good intro, you were mentioning that there were bombs thrown in by Obama's, basically with Obama's approval, every 20 minutes while he was the president. So these are the kind of people who are the ones awarded this prize. So if people are a little bit aware, they will know that actually there's really bad shit coming down in Venezuela, and it's because she is one of the participants in this. There's bad shit, but there's good shit too. There's good stuff too. I want to highlight this, because this is an extremely difficult time in Venezuela, but it is actually a beautiful time too. And I'm not only talking about the fact that people are in millions enrolling in the defense of their homeland, in the militias, right? I'm not only talking about that, which is beautiful in itself, but it is a time of concern, because if you're enrolling, you think that the imperialists may attack us, and they may well do it. I think it's very actually likely. Well, actually, they may well do it. No, they are attacking fisher folk already. They are doing it, but they may also do it on land, as Trump has saying. So not only is this a beautiful time in Venezuela because there is this enrollment, a beautiful time of concern, but also I want to highlight something. I was saying that Venezuela's democracy cannot be limited to what we understand as liberal democracy, where you choose your representatives. This is a grassroots democracy, which is based on communes, people taking decisions at the grassroots about how to reorganize their life. And this is very, very important, because we are talking about really opening the doors to a new world in the worst of conditions. And look, Chavez proposed communes in 2009. These grassroots forms of organization, our pathway towards socialism, a profoundly democratic pathway towards socialism. He proposes them in 2009, but actually that was a time of peak commodities. So people, while we liked the idea of the communes, it wasn't a time where there was an urgency to reorganize society fully. It was in the hardest of times, in 2016, 2017, 2018, when people remember the commune or nothing phrase of Chavez. Chavez had said that the two options that Venezuela had were either the commune or nothing. And it was in the time when there was actually nothing in the stores in Venezuela. Literally, there was nothing because of the blockade against the people of Venezuela, because the economic war against the people of Venezuela, that many people in Venezuela turned hard towards the communes. They remembered that slogan of Chavez and they said the communes. So in the hardest of times, Venezuelans have also begun to really work hard for this grassroots project that implies the reorganization of society, not only at the grassroots level, I have to say, because the communes are not only a grassroots form of reorganization of politics and the economy, but actually the commune is the project, the national project for the organization of the society as a whole. So they are attacking, of course, because Venezuela has a sovereign project, because Venezuela aims to have control of its resources, but they are also attacking because Venezuela has opened up a model for the reorganization of society that could, they need actually Venezuela. This is an exemplary punishment. Venezuela is living an exemplary punishment. They do not want Venezuela to succeed. And of course, and going back to something else that you were saying before, of course, this can become like the project of Venezuela can become a problem for as a reference, and they have a lot of problems in house. So they also want to displace the focus to elsewhere, and that's when they begin to cook up the whole thing about narco-terrorism. So this is all around a war against the people of Venezuela, against the sovereign project, and it shouldn't surprise us that it comes with prices, and that it comes with discourse, that it comes with lies, but that it also comes with death and destruction.
Whenever I hear about the democratic process in Venezuela and Cuba, to me, that inherently seems way more democratic than anything we have in the United States. And just the commune system, what they are trying to move towards, that sounds beautiful to me. Like, that's how decolonized my mind is. Meanwhile, if you are imperialist minded, and this is how the capitalists really believe, they view anything other than neoliberal capitalist domination of a democracy as authoritarian. And the CIA have admitted that they engage in mass confusion techniques, where they knew there was an internal memo that floats all around tanky Twitter, at least, where the CIA admits that they knew that the Soviet Union was a democracy, but it was a different kind of democracy than American democracy. So they use that to their advantage and to confuse Americans. Anything that's different than us, we smear and we call authoritarian. And that's why one of the first steps to decolonize your mind is realizing that authoritarianism is a propaganda term. But what do you call? Go, feel free if you want to try to.
It's so true. I mean, I should say that sanctions generally actually do not succeed in their objective. I mean, what are the countries that are more harshly punished with unilateral coercive measures? It would be Cuba, of course, the longest, a lot of suffering, Iran, North Korea, and of course, Venezuela. There are many other countries that are under a sanctions regime, but those would be the ones where there's more violence, more punitive violence in terms of sanctions exercised against their people. And those governments are still standing, but of course they create suffering with these policies. They create a fair amount of suffering. Internally, they do not create instability, actually. I mean, it would be false to say that there aren't people who suffer the sanctions and suppose that the responsible is the government, because that's the discourse that the mainstream media will say. Like, if there's no food in Venezuela, the mainstream media will say that there's no food in Venezuela, or if there are no medicines in Venezuela, the mainstream media will say that it's because the government is corrupt, etc., etc. But actually, that is totally false. And it is true that some people will take the situation and will project it on the government. But actually, a little bit to go back to what you were saying earlier, who supports the Bolivarian revolution? Actually, mostly the working class, although there are also sectors of the middle class who support the Bolivarian government. So the support is mostly at the grassroots, in the basis, in the working pueblo, el pueblo trabajador, the working people are the ones who support this process, this project, this revolution. And why? Because it actually has given them many answers to the actually lived situation. Like in the early years of the Bolivarian process, the missions actually opened up education for everybody, healthcare for everybody. And so people actually have, the working class of Venezuela has actually lived the beauty of this process. But, like it is true that access, for instance, to medicines, to healthcare has been limited by the sanctions. But now there's communes where people actually can identify not as victims, and this is important, not as victims of the sanctions regime, which is oftentimes from the left how the people of Venezuela are represented. And it's true, of course, that they're suffering. But the commune turns you not into a victim, but into a subject of transformation. Venezuelans do not want to identify as victims, even if they are suffering because the imperialist attack. Venezuelans actually want to do something. And not only do they want to live better, but they want to build a better world. And that is something that they cannot take away from us.
It's such a blessing to have you on, Sarah, tonight to explain these kind of things. Go ahead, JB. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So I have an analogy in my head, and please, Miss Sarah, let me know if I'm if I'm correct, okay? This is like having two men who are married. And one of the men is abusive to his wife. And he sees the other man do wonderful, good things for his wife. Not only is he providing for her materially, but he's also very caring and loving. And so instead of the man who's abusive stop being abusive and start treating his wife better, instead he goes to the other man, takes a brick and bludgeons him to death because he does not like that the other man is showing him up. Because if his wife sees that the other man is treating his wife good, that means that there's going to be pressure on him, or she may even leave him. This is what the United States is doing to Venezuela. They're trying to bludgeon them to death, because what the United States doesn't want is for us to look at Venezuelans and go, wait, they have way less money, they have way less than we do, and they're able to do so much with it. And so why aren't you doing that? I think we need to change not just this government, but the entire system. That means revolution. And so if we imitate or emulate the Bolivarian revolution, the Chinese revolution, the Cuban revolution, or the Bolshevik revolution, what have you, right? If we imitate these, then that means who goes out of power? Because we're always going to have a dictatorship, no matter what. But the question is, what type of dictatorship do you want to live under? Is it a dictatorship of the parasite class, or the dictatorship of you and your peers democratically together? And the problem is, a lot of times people don't know that the dictatorship of you and your peers all together democratically is a world that's possible. You and I can have nice things, but the parasite class, who is that likened to that abusive husband, wants to beat anyone that shows them up within the world stage. And so therefore, this is what we are seeing in real time. And so our goal is to take the brick out of the parasite's hand and give the parasite the boot. Because they've had the boot on our necks, it's time to reverse it and actually have something that's better for all of us. Please let me know if I'm correct.
JB, I love your big, beautiful brain. I love the way your beautiful brain works, man. Go ahead, Sarah.
It is a very good analogy. It's a great analogy, and of course, who deserves the brick and the boot is imperialism, who's the enemy of us here in Venezuela and, of course, of the working class in the United States. So about the analogy, I will just add a little bit on it, right? So there's the guy who's the abuser, and he lives in a tremendous mansion. He is actually a tremendous abuser of his partner and of other people around, and the people who work for him, etc., etc. He's just a horrible, wretched person. And then there's another household, much more humble, where there is a beautiful partnership between two people. And he doesn't like that, and he goes with the break, and he also wants their house, their humble household. So that's actually a very good analogy what you're making, James. It actually really expresses what we are living here in Venezuela, and actually it reflects how the U.S. operates, or how the U.S. operates not only against Venezuela but against the people of the world who've decided to build sovereign projects.
What is truly authoritarian? Having a system where a group like AIPAC can brag about rigging 30 out of 30 elections like they do. Like in the last election, they brag about having a 100% win rate in the United States. Or seizing the means of production, seizing and nationalizing oil production. To me, there's nothing more democratic than seizing the means of production. And that's why I've been imploring people for years to decolonize your mind, because there's nothing more authoritarian than a capitalist state where the will of the working class is never reflected through the policies. If you have a system where the will of the voters is shown throughout the policies, like you have, for example, just like in China, I know you guys get annoyed with me bragging about China, but when you have a system where people are in line with their government, how can you call that authoritarian when they're getting what they want? In the United States, the majority of Americans, I mean around a 60 to 70% clip, support single-payer healthcare, just for example. Do you guys know that even among the hard right, there's polls that show 1 out of 3 Republicans support Medicare for all? And that's a crazy number. You guys realize that, right? 1 out of 3 Republicans supporting single-payer is a fantastic number, despite what a lot of people say. But despite the overwhelming consensus in supporting single payer, I just use this as one example. We don't get single payer. We get some bullshit Obamacare with subsidies that no one likes. That is a true authoritarian system where the will of the working class is not reflected in the policies that is delivered. When you have a true democracy, we have the dictatorship of the proletariat. We have complete suppression of the agenda of the capitalist class. It doesn't get more democratic than that. But that's me going off my nerdy theory lectures. Sarah, do you have anything you want to add before I move on?
One that I agree with you about China, and two, in terms of the means of production, I think that it is useful to talk about it, because actually communes also should have means of production. And of course, the one of the first things that the Bolivarian Revolution is actually take control over PDVSA, which is the company, the now state company, that has control over the oil exploitation in Venezuela. So how can you have a democracy when you are hungry? It's that simple. When people do not have access to the goods that they produce, because that is the truth, the reality in capitalism. The majority produces the wealth that is taken in this real dictatorship of the oligarchy, of the corporations, of the bourgeoisie. They take the most of it, and the majority is left with nothing, with practically nothing. I mean, just with enough to survive so that maybe tomorrow you can get back to work, because they do need you there alive. But this is actually the current system, the hegemonic system, liberal democracy. It is actually a dictatorship of the minority. It is a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. And we aim here to build, a more substantive democracy, which we could call, a dictatorship of the working class, a dictatorship of the majority, the dictatorship of the 99%, whatever you want to call it. What we do not want is the minority which exploits you to have the right to say that they want to exploit you. And that is actually what is a dictatorship of the proletariat. It's about the majority saying what they can, and the bourgeoisie not having the right to say that they want to exploit you, because why should they have the right to say that they want to oppress you and exploit you? That is actually not liberty for the majority. So that's where we are. That's where we are in terms of the global system. And here we are trying to build, of course, with contradictions, with difficulties, but we are trying to build a new society. And actually, you can see the beginning of this new society. Mind you, this Venezuela is still a capitalist society. There are nucleuses of socialism, but Venezuela is still a capitalist society. We have a long way to go. I think we will be going further because the government supports the communes, and especially over the past couple of years, the government has actually really been supporting communes in a very important way. But we do still have a long way to go. We should recognize that there are many problems to a great degree, to the greatest degree because of capitalism, also because of the bloody sanctions, the unilateral coercive measures. And then, well, this is making a new world, making a new way of living. It is also difficult, so we make mistakes, but that is our vocation, that is our objective, the objective of the Venezuelan people.